The sky burned red over what remained of New York City. Commander John Carter stood at the viewport of Exodus Station, watching as another wave of Krell ships descended through the atmosphere. He clenched his fist as bright flashes lit up the ground below. More cities gone, more lives lost. "Commander, we need to go now." The voice belonged to his second-in-command, Laura Reed. Her face was streaked with dried tears, but her eyes were hard with resolve. "How many made it?" John asked, still staring at the dying planet. "Just under 250,000 spread across the 50 ships. We're the last group, sir." John nodded. Earth had once been home to 10 billion humans. Now, all that remained of humanity could fit into 50 hastily constructed evacuation vessels. 3 weeks ago, the Krell had appeared without warning. Their ships had blotted out the sun before they began their attack. No demands, no communication, just destruction. "Launch sequence is ready," Laura said. "The wormhole drive is charged. We need to leave before the Krell detect us." John finally turned away from Earth. The command center of Exodus Station was filled with the last military personnel of Earth. Their faces were grim, determined, but John could see the fear in their eyes. "Set course for the Proxima Centauri. Coordinates," John ordered, "and make sure every ship records what happens here today. Our children need to know what we lost." Alarms blared throughout the station as the 50 ships of the Exodus fleet detached from their docking bays. John returned to the viewport just as the first ship activated its engines, a bright blue glow pushing it away from Earth. "Krell ships are changing course," a young officer named Paul shouted. "They've detected us." "Full power to engines," John commanded. "Get us out of here." The Exodus fleet accelerated away from Earth, but the Krell ships were faster. John watched as enemy vessels broke from their attack on the planet and began pursuit. "Wormhole drive at 90%, Laura reported. "We need 2 more minutes." "We don't have 2 minutes," John said quietly. Through the viewport, John saw the first beam of energy lance out from a Krell ship. It struck one of the smaller vessels, in the fleet cutting it in half. The screams of the dying came through the communication system before Laura shut it off with shaking hands. "Sacrifice the rear guard," John said, the words like ash in his mouth. "Tell ships 40 through 50 to drop back and engage, buy us the time we need." Laura stared at him in horror. "Sir, that's 10,000 people." "To save the other 240,000, John replied, his voice breaking. "Do it." The message was sent. 10 ships peeled away from the formation, turning to face the oncoming Krell fleet. Their weapons, pitiful against the alien technology, flashed briefly in the darkness of space. "Wormhole drive at 100%, Paul announced. "Ready to activate." John looked one last time at Earth, his home. The Krell ships had surrounded the planet now, their weapons converging on its surface. Whatever they wanted, they weren't leaving anything behind. "Activate the drive," John ordered. Space twisted in front of the fleet, reality tearing open to reveal the swirling vortex of the experimental wormhole. The lead ships disappeared into its mouth as the rear guard fought their final battle. As Exodus Station entered the wormhole, John saw the unthinkable. The combined weapons of the Krell fleet fired simultaneously at Earth. The planet, the cradle of humanity, cracked like an egg. Its 200 years had passed since Earth fell. The colony on New Dawn thrived under 3 suns that never fully set. In the main science building, Lisa Martinez stared at her screen with wide eyes. The data couldn't be right. She ran the analysis again. "Same results," she whispered to herself. The door to her lab slid open. Lisa quickly switched screens as Director Alan Peters walked in. His gray uniform bore the patches of New Dawn's government and the Earth Memorial insignia all officials wore. "Dr. Martinez," he said with a tight smile, "I hear you've been requesting access to the original ship logs again." Lisa nodded. "Yes, sir. My research requires—" "Your research is supposed to focus on weapons development," Peters interrupted. "Not ancient history." "Everything connects," Lisa said carefully. "The Krell technology is to be destroyed when we find them," Peters finished. "Not studied, not understood, destroyed. That's been our mission for 2 centuries. Lisa looked down at her hands. Of course, sir. After Peters left, Lisa returned to her real work. The ship logs she'd secretly copied told a different story than the official one. The Krell attack hadn't been random. In the final transmissions from Earth's deep space monitors, there was evidence the Krell ships had been damaged. They had been running from something. Lisa sent a message to her friend, Ben Harris. Meet tonight, old place. Later, in an unused storage room deep in the colony's agricultural section, 5 people gathered around a makeshift table. They were the Truth Seekers, though they never used that name except among themselves. I found something, Lisa told them. The Krell ships were broadcasting a message during the attack. Our ancestors thought it was just noise, but I've cleaned it up. She played the audio. Strange sounds filled the room, rising and falling in patterns that seemed almost like speech. What is it? Asked Will Morris, a colony teacher. A warning, Lisa said. I'm still working on a full translation, but I'm sure of that much. The Krell were warning us. Warning us while they destroyed our planet? Said Grace Collins, who worked in the colony archives. That makes no sense. Lisa shook her head. I don't think destroying Earth was their goal. I think it was a side effect. The 5th person, a quiet engineer named Scott Taylor, finally spoke. Peters increased security on the memorial archives yesterday. Someone is watching your access. Requests, Lisa. The group fell silent. The memorial archives contained all records from the evacuation fleet. If the colony government was monitoring access, they were all in danger. We need to be more careful, Lisa said. But we can't stop. Look at this. She showed them an image she had enhanced from one of the final visual records of Earth. In the background of the planet's destruction was another shape, barely visible. That's not a Krell ship, Will said, leaning closer. No. Lisa agreed. It's much larger, and according to my calculations, it was coming from behind the sun from inside our own solar system. You think something was hiding in our system? Grace asked. For how long? Maybe always, Lisa said. Maybe that's what the Krell were trying to destroy. Scott looked troubled. If you're right, then everything we've built here, all our plans, for revenge, might be aimed at the wrong enemy, Lisa finished. The colony government has spent 200 years preparing us to fight the Krell. What if we should be preparing for something worse? A soft beep from Scott's device interrupted them. He checked it, his face going pale. Security sweep headed this way, he warned. We need to go. As they scattered, Lisa downloaded her findings to a secure chip. If she was right, humanity needed to know the truth before they encountered the Krell again. Or worse, before they encountered whatever the Krell had been fleeing from. The 3 sons of New Dawn cast long shadows as Lisa walked quickly back to her quarters, the weight of 200 years of misunderstood history heavy on her shoulders. Core exposed briefly before it exploded in a blinding flash. Then the wormhole closed, and they were somewhere else. Somewhere unknown, far from the graveyard of their world. In the sudden, terrible silence of the command center, John Carter made a vow that every person on every ship heard and remembered. We will survive. We will rebuild. And one day, no matter how long it takes, we will return. The Krell took everything from us today, but they made a mistake. His voice hardened. They let some of us live. 500 years after Earth's fall, humanity had grown and spread across 12 star systems. What had once been a single desperate fleet of survivors was now 3 distinct civilizations, each with their own vision of humanity's future. Grand Admiral Frank Nichols stood on the command deck of the Retribution, the largest warship ever built by human hands. Around him, officers worked at their stations preparing the massive vessel for its first test flight. Engine status? Frank asked. All power systems at full capacity, sir, replied his second-in-command. The new fusion core is stable. Frank allowed himself a small smile. The militarists had come a long way from the broken refugees who had first settled in the Rigel system. Now they commanded a fleet of over 300 warships, all dedicated to a single purpose: finding and destroying the Krell. Begin the test sequence, he ordered. Across the galaxy, in the lush garden world of Terra Nova, Chancellor Olivia Wright walked through fields of golden wheat with her advisors. Children played nearby, their laughter carried on the warm breeze. The militarists have built another dreadnought, said her chief diplomat, a serious woman named Diane Hall. Our spies report it's twice the size of anything they've built before. Olivia sighed. 500 years of preparing for war. Will they ever let go of the past? The progressives had focused on creating a peaceful civilization, one that looked forward rather than back. Their 7 planets were centers of art, science, and culture. While they maintained defensive capabilities, they questioned whether revenge was worth the enormous resources the militarists poured into their war machine. We've lost contact with the outpost in the Cygnus sector, Diane added. The preservers are saying it was militarist sabotage. Far from both civilizations, on a massive space station designed to look like old Earth cities, Elder Susan Jackson conducted the annual remembrance ceremony. Thousands of preservers stood in silence as holographic images of Earth played above them. We carry the true heart of humanity, Susan told her people. While others forget or distort our history, we keep the flame of Earth's legacy burning. The preservers devoted themselves to maintaining Earth's culture, language, and traditions, exactly as they had been. They collected and preserved every artifact, every piece of data, every story from the Exodus. Their museums and archives were sacred spaces. As Susan finished the ceremony, a young technician rushed up to her. Elder, we've detected something strange, he said urgently. A signal from the direction of Sol. Susan's eyes widened. Impossible. There's nothing left there. Within days, representatives from all 3 human civilizations gathered on the neutral station Concordia. Despite centuries of growing apart, the signal from humanity's original home demanded cooperation. It could be a trap, Frank argued, his military uniform stark against the civilian clothes of the others. The Krell might be trying to lure us back. Or it could be survivors, Olivia countered. Some part of Earth might have survived. Susan studied the signal data carefully. It's definitely of human origin, but altered somehow. We need to investigate. After tense negotiations, they agreed to send a joint expedition, 1 ship from each civilization. The militarists would send the scout ship Vigilance, armed with their best weapons. The progressives would contribute the research vessel Horizon with advanced scientific equipment. The preservers would provide the memory of Earth, carrying historical experts and communication specialists. We depart in 30 days, Frank announced. If this is a Krell trap, we'll be ready. If not, 1,000 years had passed since the fall of Earth. The joint expedition finally reached the solar system after months of careful travel. Chief. Explorer Daniel Ross stood on the bridge of the progressive ship Horizon, watching as the old star Sol grew larger on the main screen. Approaching final jump point, said the pilot, a young woman named Claire. All ships report ready status, Daniel ordered. The communications officer nodded. Militarist vessel Vigilance and preserver vessel Memory of Earth both report ready for final approach. Daniel took a deep breath. He represented the progressives on this mission, but he also served as the overall expedition leader, a compromise that had taken weeks to negotiate between the 3 factions. Make the jump, he said. The 3 ships activated their jump drives, simultaneously crossing the final distance to Earth's former orbit in an instant. As the flash of light cleared from the view screens, gasps echoed across the bridge. That's impossible, whispered Daniel. Where Earth should have been only empty space and debris, there was something. It wasn't Earth, not as it had been. But a chunk of the planet remained, perhaps a quarter of its original size. It hung, in space, its broken edge revealing layers of crust and mantle, while the surviving surface showed blue oceans and green land. Scan everything, Daniel ordered, finding his voice again, and open a channel to the other ships. The faces of the other commanders appeared on screen. From the militarist ship, Captain Nina Wells looked shocked beneath her disciplined exterior. From the preserver vessel, historian Greg Lewis had tears streaming down his face. It survived, Greg said. Part of Earth survived. How is this possible? Nina demanded. Our records clearly show the planet was destroyed. Daniel pointed to the readings coming in. There's some kind of energy field surrounding the fragment. It's like nothing we've ever seen before. Krell technology? Nina asked, her hand moving instinctively toward her weapon. Unknown, Daniel replied, but it's been sustaining the fragment for 1,000 years, maintaining atmosphere, gravity, even climate patterns on the surviving surface. Greg leaned closer to his screen. Are there any signs of life? Plant life? Animal life? Daniel was about to answer when a junior science officer called out from her station. Sir, we're detecting artificial structures on the surface, and energy signatures consistent with technology. Silence fell across all 3 ships. Someone's down there, Daniel said finally. The expedition spent the next week in careful observation. They detected small settlements scattered across the fragment's surface. They monitored primitive communication signals. Most shocking of all, they found evidence that the inhabitants were human. Survivors, Greg said during their daily briefing. Some of our people must have survived on the surface when the Krell attacked. But how? Nina asked. And why didn't they try to contact the evacuation fleet? Daniel studied the latest scan results. Maybe they couldn't. Look at this, their technology is strange. Some of it seems more advanced than ours, but in different ways. They've developed along a completely separate path. As they debated their next move, Claire called out from her station. Multiple objects. Detected at the edge of the system. They're coming in fast. The tactical display showed 5 ships entering the solar system. Their design was unmistakable, flowing lines of dark metal pulsing with green energy. Ships that matched perfectly with 1,000-year-old records, Krell vessels, Nina said, her voice hardening. They've returned. Daniel made a quick decision. Send a signal to the surface, let them know they're not alone, and prepare first contact protocols. He looked at the approaching Krell ships. We need to know what happened here before they arrive. We have 3 days at most. On the fragment of Earth below, figures looked up at the night sky, pointing at new stars that had appeared above them. The first visitors from the stars in 1,000 years. He left the sentence unfinished. None of them wanted to voice the hope that something of their ancestral home might have survived. As the representatives returned to their respective territories, humanity stood at a crossroads. The signal from Sol had done something no diplomat had managed in centuries. It had briefly united the divided children of Earth in common purpose. What they would find there would change everything. The landing craft descended through wispy clouds toward a clearing near one of the larger settlements on the Earth fragment. Daniel Ross led the contact team, which included Nina from the militarists and Greg from the preservers. They had less than 2 days before the Krell ships arrived. Remember, we don't know how these people will react to us, Daniel cautioned. Their ancestors watched Earth die. They may not welcome visitors from space. As the craft touched down, they saw figures emerging from the tree line. The Earth-born humans wore clothing made from natural materials, but several carried devices that glowed with an odd blue light. Chieftain Kate Miller stepped forward from her people. She was tall, with dark skin and eyes that seemed to shift color in the sunlight. She raised her hand in greeting. We have waited many generations for your return, she said in a language that was recognizably English, though with an accent none of them had heard before. Daniel blinked in surprise. You knew we would come? Kate nodded. The first ones told stories of those who fled to the stars. They said you would return when the enemy came again. She pointed to the sky. And now both have come. Greg stepped forward eagerly. The first ones, they survived the Krell attack. A few thousand, Kate explained. Those who were in the deep shelters or remote regions. The shield saved what it could. The shield? Nina asked, her hand never far from her weapon. Kate gestured around them. What holds our world together? What keeps us safe? She touched the device at her belt, which pulsed with that same blue light. What gives us our gifts? Over the next hours, the visitors learned about the Earthborn society. They had developed differently from the Star Travelers. While the Exodus humans had focused on technology and space travel, The Earthborn had formed a deeper connection with the remnants of their world. "Show them," Kate said to a young man named Jeff. Jeff stepped forward, placing his hand on the ground. The blue light flowed from his fingertips into the soil. Before their eyes, flowers sprouted and bloomed in seconds. "How is this possible?" Daniel whispered. "The shield changes things," Kate explained. "It changed the land, the plants, the animals. It changed us too over generations." Ryan Cooper, a military historian from the militarist ship, had been quiet until now. "The Krell have returned here many times, haven't they?" Kate's expression darkened. "Yes. They come, they search, they leave. They do not attack us, but they take samples, soil, water, plants." She hesitated. "Sometimes people." "They're looking for something," Ryan said. It wasn't a question. Kate nodded. "The first ones believed the Krell were afraid of something hidden, on Earth, something they tried to destroy but couldn't." Nina exchanged glances with Daniel. "That matches what Lisa Martinez discovered centuries ago," she said quietly. As night fell, Kate led them to a series of caves beneath the settlement. On the walls were paintings that dated back to the earliest survivors. "These show what happened," Kate explained, pointing to images of the Krell ships attacking Earth. But she moved further into the cave, showing them older paintings. "And these show why." The ancient images depicted something vast and dark beneath the surface of the planet. Something with man 2,000 years after Earth's fall, humanity had rebuilt much of what was lost. The three factions had slowly reunited, after the discovery of Earth's fragment and the revelation of the Krell's true motives. Massive space stations orbited the fragment, while research teams worked tirelessly to understand both the shield technology and the threat that lay beneath the surface. Dr. Eric Bell stood in the central chamber of the deep excavation site. As a descendant of the original truth seekers, he had dedicated his life to understanding the ancient enemy. Around him, screens displayed data collected from the Krell outposts they had discovered throughout the solar system. "I've got it," he said suddenly. "The final piece." His assistant, a young Earthborn woman named Hannah, looked up from her workstation. Like all Earthborn, she had the distinctive shifting eye color that marked their adaptation to the shield's energy. "You've translated the Krell language?" she asked. Eric nodded, his fingers moving rapidly over the holographic interface. "Not all of it, but enough. Listen to this." He activated the audio system. The strange sounds of Krell speech filled the chamber, now accompanied by a translation displayed on the main screen. "The devourer of minds sleeps beneath the third planet. If it wakes, all sentient life in this sector will be consumed. Protocol demands immediate planetary sterilization." Hannah shivered. "That's what they called us? A planet to be sterilized?" "They were terrified," Eric said. "According to these records, the Krell encountered evidence of the sleeper on other worlds, planets where all intelligent life had been wiped out, but the planets themselves were left intact." He brought up images of dead worlds, eerily similar to each other. Planets, with signs of former civilization but no remaining life. The Krell believed the sleeper moves from world to world, consuming all sentient minds before moving on. They thought it had gone dormant on Earth, and they wanted to destroy it before it could wake up and spread. "So they weren't evil," Hannah said softly. "They were trying to save the galaxy. At our expense," Eric reminded her. "But yes, they believed they were preventing a greater catastrophe." The room shook slightly, dust falling from the ceiling. The tremors had been growing stronger. Each month, something was stirring deep below. On the command ship Unity, Admiral Joe Garcia received Eric's report with a grim expression. Representatives from all human factions gathered in the strategy room. "So we finally know the truth," Joe said. 2,000 years after Earth fell, we learned that our greatest enemy was trying to save the galaxy from something worse. "And they failed," said General Sam Collins of the militarist faction. "This sleeper is still here, and according to these readings, it's waking up." Maria Green, leader of the progressive faction, studied the data. "The shield technology that protected the Earth fragment. Could we use it somehow?" The Earthborn have been containing this thing for centuries without realizing it. Possibly, Joe agreed. But we'll need help. To everyone's surprise, he opened a communication channel to the Krell ships that had been keeping their distance at the edge of the system. "We know why you destroyed our world," Joe said into the channel, using the translation program Eric had developed. "We face the same enemy now. Will you help us stop it?" For several long moments there was no response. Then, a series of clicks and whistles came through. The translation appeared on screen. "The cycle must be broken. We will assist." Sam leaned forward, suspicious. "Can we trust them after everything they did?" Joe looked at the images of dead worlds that Eric had discovered. "We don't have a choice. If this thing fully awakens and escapes Earth, it won't just be our problem. Every sentient species in the galaxy will be at risk." The ship shuddered as another stronger tremor passed through the Earth fragment below. "Whatever we're going to do," Maria said, "we need to do it quickly. I don't think we have much time left." Deep beneath the fragment, something ancient and vast stirred in its long slumber, reaching out with tendrils of thought that brushed against the minds of those above. The eyes. "The first ones called it the sleeper," Kate said. "They believed it was here before humans, sleeping deep below. The Krell knew of it somehow. They tried to kill it by destroying Earth. And they failed," Daniel said slowly. "It's still here, isn't it? Under this fragment." Kate turned to face them, her color-shifting eyes now glowing with the same blue, light as their devices. "Yes, and it has begun to wake up. That's why you're here now. That's why the Krell have returned." She looked at each of them. The old war never ended. It's about to begin again. In orbit, the Krell ships drew closer. 2,500 years after Earth's fall, humanity's mission had transformed completely. What began as a quest for vengeance had become a desperate race to contain an ancient cosmic horror. The Earth fragment was now surrounded by a network of shield generators, enhanced versions of the technology that had preserved the fragment for millennia. Commander Patricia Watson stood on the bridge of the flagship Vengeance, watching as the Krell ships took up positions around the fragment. The irony of working alongside the destroyers of Earth was not lost on her. "Shield network at 85% capacity," reported her first officer Jim Winters. "The Krell reinforcements are strengthening the southern quadrant." Patricia nodded. "And the evacuation?" "Complete. All Earthborn have been relocated to the colony ships. The last research teams are leaving now." A series of tremors shook the fragment below, visible even from orbit. Cracks appeared along the broken edge, glowing with an unnatural purple light. "The sleeper is pushing harder against the containment field," Patricia said. "It knows we're trying to trap it." The door to the bridge slid open and an Earthborn scientist named Luke entered. Like many who had spent their lives on the fragment, his mind had been touched by the sleeper's influence. His once shifting eyes now pulsed with purple light at their centers. "It's speaking to me again," Luke said, his voice strained. "Offering knowledge. Power. It says it only wants to help us evolve." Patricia placed a hand on his shoulder. "Stay. With us, Luke. We know its promises are lies." Over the past century, they had learned much about the entity they faced. The sleeper didn't simply destroy civilizations. It consumed them, absorbing their knowledge and consciousness while leaving, their world's dead husks. Those exposed to its influence for too long became its unwilling servants, their minds slowly overwritten. "Commander, incoming transmission from the Krell flagship," Jim announced. The main screen displayed the alien communication, now translated, by their systems. "The containment is failing faster than predicted. We must implement the final solution." Patricia tensed. "Not yet. Give our teams more time." The final solution was a last resort, using weapons developed by both humans and Krell to destroy the Earth fragment entirely, hopefully taking the sleeper with it. But there was no certainty it would work, and it meant sacrificing the last physical remnant of humanity's homeworld. On a separate screen, She opened a connection to the diplomatic vessel where representatives from other alien civilizations monitored the situation. Over the past few centuries, humanity had made contact with 5 other spacefaring species, all of whom recognized the threat the sleeper posed. Ambassador Rick Holland, we need more time, Patricia said. The containment can hold if we get those additional shield generators online. The human ambassador nodded. The Novali are sending their devices now. The Zentari fleet is standing by to assist with deployment. As alien ships moved into position, Patricia felt a strange pressure behind her eyes. She wasn't Earthborn, yet she could sense something reaching for her mind, testing, probing for weakness. It's getting stronger, Luke whispered, now slumped in a chair. It's been feeding on the energies we're using against it. A horrifying thought occurred to Patricia. Computer, scan the shield network for energy absorption patterns. The results confirmed her fears. The sleeper wasn't just fighting against their containment. It was using the energy they poured into the shields as nourishment, growing stronger with each attempt to contain it. All ships, pull back from the fragment, she ordered. Reduce shield network to minimum levels, we've been feeding it. As the ships retreated to safer distances, Patricia watched the purple glow around the fragment dim slightly. They had bought some time, but the fundamental problem remained. We can't contain it, and we might not be able to destroy it, she told her officers. We need a new approach entirely. From the science station, a young officer named 3,000 years after Earth's fall, humanity led the largest fleet ever assembled in the galaxy back to the solar system. Ships from 7 different species filled the space around the Earth. Fragment, which now glowed with an intense purple light visible from billions of miles away. Admiral William Boyd stood on the bridge of the Unity, the massive flagship that represented the combined technological achievements of all human factions. At 70 years old, he had spent half his life preparing for this moment. All ships report ready status, his executive officer reported. The Earthborn volunteers are in position. William nodded. And the device? Final calibrations complete. The Krell engineers confirm it's functioning as designed. For 500 years, humans and their former enemies had worked together, along with 5 other alien civilizations, to develop a solution to the sleeper. The massive device they had created, called simply the Key, now orbited the Earth fragment, its complex structures aligned with the ancient shield technology. Open a channel to all ships, William ordered. When the connection was ready, he spoke clearly. This is Admiral Boyd. In a few minutes, we will attempt to end a threat that has haunted this galaxy for countless millennia. The sleeper has consumed worlds before Earth, and would consume many more if left unchecked. He paused, looking at the view screen showing the Earth fragment, his ancestral home. 3,000 years ago, our ancestors fled Earth, vowing to return and seek vengeance. Today we return, not for vengeance, but for salvation, not just for humanity, but for all sentient life. On a separate deck of the flagship, 50 Earthborn volunteers prepared for their role. Among them was Amy Rogers, a direct descendant of the first Earthborn who had connected with the shield. The purple light in her eyes had grown stronger over the weeks as the sleeper reached out to her and the others. It's offering us everything, she told her companion, Roy Blackwell. It shows me visions of power beyond imagination. Roy nodded, his own eyes flickering between blue and purple. It's lying. Remember what we saw in the Krell records. All those dead worlds. Amy squeezed his hand. I know. I'm ready. The plan was both simple and desperately complex. The Earthborn, with their unique biological connection to the shield, and by extension to the sleeper itself, would form a mental bridge. The Key would amplify and redirect that connection, creating a pathway to a pocket dimension the allied species had created. It's time, came Admiral Boyd's voice over the communication system. Earthborn team, begin the sequence. Amy and the other Earthborn connected their minds to the specialized equipment. The purple light in their eyes intensified as they allowed the sleeper access to their thoughts, but on their terms. On the bridge, William watched as the Key began to glow with the same purple energy. The connection is established, reported the science officer. The sleeper is responding. The Earth fragment shuddered violently. Massive tentacles of energy erupted from its surface, reaching toward the Earthborn volunteers on the ship. It senses the trap, William said. Full power to the key. Now. Throughout the fleet, ships directed their energy into the massive device. The key pulsed once, twice, then emitted a beam of blinding light that struck the center of the Earth fragment. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the purple energy began to flow along the beam, pulled from the fragment toward the key. It's working, William whispered. The sleeper is being extracted. The process took hours. The Earthborn volunteers struggled to maintain the connection without being consumed by the sleeper's influence. Ships from all species worked in perfect coordination, maintaining the energy flow to the key. Finally, the last tendrils of purple energy left the Earth fragment, channeled through the key into the pocket dimension, a prison designed to hold the entity for eternity. As the glow faded, William looked at the view screen. The Earth fragment remained no longer cracked and broken, but healing. The shield technology, freed from containing the sleeper, was now rebuilding what had been lost. Send the message to all colonies, William ordered. Earth is secure. The solar system is once again the home of humanity. 3,000 years after fleeing their burning world, humanity had returned, not for revenge, but to save the galaxy, and in doing so, they had reclaimed their birthright and their place among the stars. Carl looked up. Commander, I've been analyzing data from the Earthborn. The way they connected to the shield for generations. He hesitated. What if we don't need to contain the sleeper or destroy it? What if we could redirect it? Patricia turned to him. Explain. The Earthborn developed abilities through their connection to the shield. What if we reversed that connection? For the first time in months, Patricia felt a glimmer of hope. Perhaps humanity's unique adaptation to the sleeper's proximity would provide the key to defeating it.